Is this really it? So many high achieving women reach a point in their careers where they ask themselves this question. They're living the same day over and over, following the same routine, and it starts to feel like something is missing. It can be tough, stressful, challenging those days. It's not monotonous because they're bored, or it could be that, but it's more of the same type of challenges, the same type of stress that's happening each day. And they look around and they think to themselves, is this really all there is? This is what I'm doing with myself and my life? And by the way, it doesn't matter if you're a parent or not. You could be a mom, you could not be a mom, or if you are listening to this when you're a father, it does not matter. It's that question of, is this what I am doing with my life? It's not that you're necessarily physically drained, but rather that you're no longer maybe inspired. You're no longer excited. There's no newness, no freshness to the work that you're doing that used to drive you. Or you're just tired of doing the same old stuff. You're tired of doing the same old thing. And then there's that other question. Is this really it? Because this is exhausting, right? I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. I can't work like this anymore. And there the driver is the exhaustion and the stress that is taking a physical toll, an emotional and mental toll on you, where you're running on empty and you're realizing that continuing down this path is simply no longer sustainable for you. So in today's episode, we are diving into the most common limiting beliefs that I've observed and personally experienced, which I talk about in my book, Your Time to Rise. But these are limiting beliefs that I've observed in the clients that I coach and what keeps them stuck in jobs or roles that are no longer fulfilling to them. Now, I want to be clear that this episode is for you if you are in that kind of boat where you have this restless, uneasy feeling inside as you start to have thoughts about a job, role, or career change. These beliefs, in some ways, make you push harder to deliver excellent work and in many ways have helped to make you successful. But they can also hold you back from moving forward when you're curious about what could be next for you. So if you want to dig deeper into the work of next steps and getting even more clarity on what moving forward could look like for you, you'll have to grab a copy of Your Time to Rise to help you with that. It's intended for these kinds of professional and personal inflection points. But for now, let's dive into these beliefs, because belief number one is the one I hear about the most, which is the golden handcuffs. And it may sound something like this. I cannot afford to walk away from this salary and this lifestyle. I hear it all the time. And it's not just financial. All my financial educators out there know. I'm thinking of Erica. I'm thinking of Gigi. I'm thinking of Diana. I'm thinking of Adriana. All of my financial educators know that there is a money mindset, that money is so psychological. And the life that you've built around the compensation that you receive makes it feel impossible to even consider a pivot or to make a change, even if that is not factually, objectively accurate. You've worked hard to get where you are. There's no mistake about that. The high salary, the bonuses, the benefits, they've allowed you to live a life that's comfortable. And you've gotten used to that. You've gotten used to all those Amazon orders. You've gotten used to maybe going to Home Goods and buying more than just one pillow. You've gotten used to Being able to just do what you want because the money will always land in your bank account without having to think about it or worry about it. I get it. You've built a lifestyle that reflects your success and your status. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. What I am saying is that there is still this constant tug within you. It's like this tug of war within you, this tug in your chest, this gnawing feeling that something isn't quite right. You have felt it for a while now. Maybe the tug of war feels more intense. Maybe some days it's more intense than others. And the moment you consider, hey, on the days where it is really intense, you really consider making a change and trying to explore that. That thought creeps in. It's like a wave. Well, I can't afford to walk away from this. Look at everything I've built. Look at the life I've worked so hard for. Look at the life that I provide for my family. Then we start getting into what about all those vacations? And what about independent school? If you send your kids to independent school, you start thinking of all the things that you pay for, and you're like, yeah, no, I can't give all that up. And I'm not saying to give all that up, by the way. And then all of those thoughts, though, of something more fulfilling, something that is more maybe exciting, filled with more meaning and purpose, it seems more distant because the thought of stepping away from a very well-paying, high-status job, a very prestigious job for many of you, can feel like it's not within reach. And you start telling yourself, I've invested so much in what I'm doing. I'm invested so much in this job, this environment, these people. I've sacrificed so much already. I can't walk away from this, or I can't pivot in any kind of way. So this tension between wanting more and then being tethered to financial security. And I want to say financial security for like a top percentage of the population. Okay. We're not talking about financial security for most people, right? I'm talking about high paying, high achieving kind of roles. So this tension between wanting more and then being attached and tied to what financial security means to you creates this internal conflict that you can't seem to resolve. You know, that part of you that wants to feel excited and wants to feel locked in terms of your sense of purpose. You want to feel alive again, wants to feel connected to your work in a way that gives you more than just a paycheck. But every time you consider it, you're just reminded of the salary, the prestige, the comfort. How would I do this? What would others think? But here is what I want to offer you is that compensation is only part of the cost. So you're also paying with your time, your energy, your joy. And this is the time you have left to live your life. We don't get to decide when we go. So the question becomes, what's the cost of staying exactly where you are? And I will share with you a story because when I set my goals for my business, I remember my goals were very lofty. Financial goals were very lofty, very high. And I was working with my coach. She's great. And she said to me, "Adivi, I understand this is your number. I understand. I get it. Is that what you need to make, or is that what you want to make? When you look at your finances, what do you need to make versus what do you want to make?" And I'm going, "I want to make, $1 million. Like, who doesn't want to make that?" And I'm making that number up. That was not my number, but it was a high number, but it was not quite $1 million. And because actually, when we were talking, I gave her a number that was higher than my equity plus salary plus bonus at my previous corporate job, and which is almost 2 years ago that I left that job. Actually, a year and a half. And so she was checking me, and she was challenging me, which I love. I love when coaches do that to me because I've always had a coach in different aspects of my life, personal, business, I find them to be extremely helpful, keeping me accountable and helping me think differently about the things that I'm considering. So the question is, what is your salary or compensation need versus the want? And what story are you telling yourself about that? So here's your question for your own reflection. Now, if you are in the car, please do not write this down. Focus on driving. You can come back to this later. The question is, what do you actually need to feel secure financially? Need, not want, need. And maybe that involves some trade offs. And what does a rich life really look like for you? And what does a rich life really mean to you? And obviously, in terms of richness, I'm really speaking about personally, right? I'm not speaking about necessarily a lot of material things. But think about that question. I highly suggest you write down the answers to these questions on a piece of paper in your journal. Grab your phone, go to the Notes app, and type them out, type them into an email to yourself. Writing things down, writing down thoughts and feelings really does help you gain a little bit of clarity and really does help you process everything in your brain because we have so many inputs, constant barrage of data between social media, your email. If you are a mom or you're a parent, the amount of times you get called, mommy, daddy, mommy, daddy, mommy, daddy, and you're overstimulated when you get to work and when you're at home. I'm telling you, journaling I find to be very self-soothing and I find it to be a release. It helps me release a lot of the things that I've consumed and taken in all day, not because I chose to take it in, but because it's what is happening all around me. So that's your reflection question. What do you actually need to feel secure? And what does a rich life really look like for you? And what does it really mean to you? Belief number 2, the sunken cost fallacy. Here is what it may sound like in your brain. I've worked so hard for this. I can't throw this all away. I've worked very hard for this reputation. I've worked hard to earn this reputation. People know me for this. People know me here. People know my work here. I can't leave this to start over. Here is where you've likely spent years, maybe even decades for some of you, climbing this ladder, building your reputation, proving and showing that you've got the goods and that you're excellent. There are, and you know this better than me, countless hours in terms of your own life, countless hours, sacrifices, burning the midnight oil, late nights, and things that you missed because you were working. And when I say things you missed, I'm talking about, because this happened to me as well, moments you missed with your children, moments you missed with friends and family. And I'm not saying the moments where you didn't really want to be there. I'm talking about the dinner plans you made, the happy hour drinks, if you do that, the games, the recitals, the first day of school, which I missed. My kid's first day of school. Was it last year or the year before? Because I had to go to a conference. And it just happened to be on the same day that my kids were starting school in September. And I had to miss that because I was essentially working. So I understand what it's like to miss the things that really matter. And you understand, as I did, that it's par for the course, right? Like I have to miss some things. And I think that's true regardless. I do believe that if you are committed to your craft, there are times where you can't be in two places at once. And so you're going to have to make that call. The goal is that you're not missing too much, right? Nothing in the extremes. Everything, I try to say certain things in moderation and everything intentionally as best you can, because you can't always do that. But even thinking for you about the promotions you've earned and deserved, clients you've helped and supported and collaborated with and partnered with, every achievement for you has felt like a confirmconfirmation, like validation that you are on the right path, that what you're doing is is what you're supposed to be doing because 'cause you're good at it, and you've worked hard to be good at it. You've gotten the reps in. You've gotten the reps in and the practice in to be great at it. And now you might be telling yourself, because 'cause you've been doing it for a while now, and when you do something for a while, sometimes you want a little bit more, something a little different, spice it up a little bit. And so you might tell yourself, "Okay, yeah, I do feel that I feel this little pull to something different, but I can't just walk away from this. Look at everything I've invested. My time, my reputation, my energy, all this work, it'll all be for nothing if I make a change now." And your mind starts running in circles. You start thinking about all the people who know you in this way, in this role, the respect you've earned from them, the people who helped develop you, people who've invested in you, the positioning you've created and you've built and you've maintained. You start thinking, what will they think of me? What if I'm making a huge mistake? I don't want anyone telling me they told me so. I can't afford to start over. I'm too far in to turn back now. I cannot tell you how many people, when I decided I wanted to leave the practice of law because I wanted something different, I wanted a different experience, I wanted to grow in a different way. Because I work with mostly lawyers now, and I have a deep respect and appreciation for that profession. And so I remember sharing with people that story, and people would tell me, "Oh, but do you feel like you wasted your law degree? You didn't have to be leading leadership development at a very fast-paced company, you don't have to be a lawyer. Obviously, you don't have to be a lawyer. However, the path that I took, every single step, including being a lawyer, working at law firms, clerking, going in-house, all of those things led me to being extremely qualified and experienced in what I do now, right? So I wasn't wasting my law degree. I could have said that. I could have said when I was in ninth year and decided to leave to go in-house a year before I would be up for partner. I could have said, "You know what? I put in 9 years, and this is what I wanted. I wanted to be partner when I came to this firm. That's what I wanted, that's what I wanted." But my mind changed. Things changed for me. And so what I once wanted that was very real and true for me became what I didn't want anymore. And I had those thoughts of, "Oh gosh, I mean, I've worked really hard for this. Like, I have worked my tail off for this. And I'm now saying I don't want it anymore. Who does that? Who does that? Me. I do that. I do that. I do that. Because again, you only get one life. You only get one life. And sure, I know a lot of people, and I've had clients who will just make partner just to check the box off. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just want you to be intentional about what that means. And I want you to be intentional about that decision and accepting of that decision. So that if you want to go for the promotion, you want to go for that next level executive position at your company, you understand what that requires. A lot more hard work. And that's okay, but be accepting of that instead of constantly then staying in this tug of war internally, which isn't going to be helpful to you, which tells you maybe you really don't want it, but you think you should want it, so you go for it. Those are two very different things. To actually want something because it is what you desire, it is what you've worked for, and that is where you feel like you need to be headed. Versus, I should want this because I've worked so hard for this, because people expect this of me, because people have invested in me to be this thing. So I'm going to go do that. No, those are two different things. Here's what I know. When you start thinking about other people and what they will think of you, I want you to know that people who care about you, who put their names on the line for you in rooms that you're not in, who've sponsored you in rooms you're not in, who've given you opportunities that maybe other people would not have given you because they didn't see the same potential in you that the person that supports you does. The people who care about you, are invested in you, and want what's best for you are going to support you no matter what. They're going to support you no matter what you do because they care about you as a person, not just what you can do for them at work, not just how good you can make them look at work, not just because of what you produce and what your output is. They care about you and like you and support you and are there for you as a person. And let me tell you this. I've had experiences where I thought someone would be disappointed in a career pivot I was making because I've had quite a few rule changes and career moves where they literally just sat there and said, I got your back. Like, whatever you need, you let me know. Even when sharing with people who invested in me, but more from afar, who I didn't know too well personally, for them to say, okay, yeah, I'm whatever you want to do, I'm down. That's really meaningful. And then I've had people who, after I left a place, never saw them again or spoke to them again, even though we had daily conversations. And that's okay too, because not everybody is your person, and that's okay. But here's what I want you to know. The longer you stay in a place or on a path that no longer fits who you are or what you want or what you're desiring in this season of your life, the more you actually waste. Because every day that you're in an unfulfilling place or you feel disconnected is a day that you will never get back. Again, we only get one chance to live this life. We don't get do-overs. You get one shot at this thing. And we know from Bronnie Ware's Regrets of the Dying, which I talk about in my book, that the top regret of the dying is, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to me, not the one expected of me. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to me, not the one expected of me. So the cost of staying stuck for you has to be greater than the fear of change, the fear of not knowing how it's going to turn out, the fear of what other people will think, the fear of what people close to you will think. From all of my work in coaching and speaking and talking to hundreds and thousands of people, high achieving leaders and lawyers, I'm going to tell you that cost has to be much higher or greater than your fear, your anxieties, your worries. You deserve more than just feeling like you can't leave because of all the time and energy and work you've put in. Because you're really not starting over. This is the mindset shift that we have to start leaning into. You're not really starting over. You're starting with more wisdom, more experience, more expertise, more perspective. Every single thing you've done, every single thing you've learned, every mistake you made, everything comes with you. What doesn't have to come with you is the belief that past effort justifies current or future unhappiness. So here is the reflection question for you. Again, write this out, write your response down on paper or on your phone. Just get it out of your head, get it out of your body. Think of what you in 5 years would say. So look forward to your future self in 5 years and think of what your future self in 5 years would say to you. They would be proud of you for summoning that courage and growing through that. But access that future self and ask her, what should I know? What do I need to know? What should I do? Like, what are you seeing? I am telling you, when you can access wisdom from your own future self, you can ask mentors, that's great, but you also need to look inward first and think about, okay, well, what would me in 5 years say about this situation right now? What would me in 5 years advise me to do? Because me in 5 years knows me better than anyone else. So grapple with that question of it. Belief number 3, the identity trap. This one, all of these hit home for me. And if you've read my book, you know that they all do, because I talk about all of them and more. This is the one where you over-identify with your career or your position or the prestige that your job holds. So it's the thought of, this is who I am. I am the lawyer. I am the executive. Or I work at such and such prestigious law firm, such and such prestigious company. I am the achiever. This is who I am. So you've spent so much of your life becoming this person. Because when you do something over and over every day, that's who you become. And you've worked a lot. You've worked tirelessly to build an image, a brand, a reputation. And your identity is deeply intertwined with that, with your career. And every achievement confirms to you that this is who you are and this is who you're meant to be. There isn't anything wrong with having your work be a part of your identity. Like, I'm very proud, and I'm sure you are, of how hard you've worked and what you've achieved and what you've accomplished. Please, let's hold some space for that for a minute. That, yes, amen, yes, amazing, yes, get it, yes, I love it, and yes, there's a time for hustle. I don't subscribe to the, oh, we don't hustle anymore. That no, there's a time for that. There's a time for acceleration. There's a time for pushing yourself. I just asked you, pull it back too. I just ask that you rest and you hustle, right? We have to have both. It's and. It's and. It's not this or that. Too much of anything is not a good thing. But when you think about stepping away or making a change, that fear that we talked about earlier creeps in, right? If I'm not the lawyer, if I'm not the partner, or if I'm not the lawyer here versus somewhere else, or if I'm not the executive here, but somewhere else, well, who am I? Or if I'm not an executive at all, if I want to just take a year or two and go on sabbatical, I've had people do that. I've had clients do that. It's more common than you think. They just don't put it on social media. You just don't know about it. But there are so many people who take sabbaticals. Why? Because they're like, I'm just done. I'm over it. And that's okay too. What I really want you to understand is everyone is so different, and everyone has their own way of navigating their own inflection points and their crossroads in their lives. What is best for you is going to be what is best for you, meaning it's what you decide. If you start listening to all the yappers and all the chatter, you're never going to be able to tune into what you really need at this point in your life. You are the one who knows you best, right? So what happens is we challenge ourselves with, wait a minute, who am I without this title? Without this title of partner, who am I? If I am a partner at a law firm, but then I go in-house, I'm just a director or an executive director, but that's not prestigious like a partner. No, it's different. You're absolutely right. It is different. That's the one thing you'll always get from me is the truth. It is different. No, when you're a partner in a law firm, you're like the center of the universe for many people at that firm. You're a partner, especially equity partner, depending on the firm you're at. Some people, there's a difference between income partner and equity partner. No, if you're an equity partner, yeah, you're the center of the universe. And yeah, if you go in-house, it's a little different. It is a little different. But it comes with growth and change and experiencing something new. And by the way, that's your ego getting in the way right there, right? Your ego is like, no, I'm more important. I get treated importantly here, and I want to be treated that way there. Okay, I'm not going to say that's good. I'm going to say that maybe take a look at what you're attaching so much meaning to and what stories you're telling yourself about a different role that doesn't have to you the same prestige. All right? Because it can feel terrifying to even imagine life without a role that has defined you for so long. You worry that if you leave or even shift directions at the place you're in, right, that you will possibly lose yourself. And the fear isn't just about changing jobs. It's about losing the core of who you are because of the meaning you've attached to the job. But here's what I need you to know. And again, what I've personally experienced is that you're not your job. You're not your entire career. Your career doesn't define you, even if it's been your primary source of validation and success. I'm talking about myself too here. Okay. You are a whole, multifaceted person, and your worth and your value isn't tied to what do you do, the prestige of your position or industry, your title, or what others see. It is time to start releasing this notion that your value is bound up in your job description, in your title, and the prestige that you attach to it. When your work becomes your identity, change feels like death to that identity. But you're allowed to expand beyond that. You're allowed to expand beyond that. Here's your reflection question. Again, write this down if you can. Who are you when you're not performing or achieving? So if I'm asking it to myself, I would ask myself, okay, if my career wasn't the primary thing that defined me or my work, what would I want to explore, create, experience in my life? What would it feel like to reclaim parts of myself that I've put on hold for the sake of professional success? Now, I want to be 100 here and tell you, I'm not telling you necessarily to leave your job. Like that. Some people say, oh, so if I'm happy, I leave my job. No, there are so many options. No, 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 no. But I'm not telling you that, because a lot of times we as high achievers, we're all or nothing thinkers. If I'm not going all out, it's not good enough. If I'm not going all out, I'm not working hard enough. If I'm not going all out, then it's not worth it. I'm not doing it at all. If I can't work out for 2 hours or 1 hour, I'm not working out. Instead of saying, hey, if I get in 20 minutes a day, which science has shown us is quite effective for physical fitness and health, is doing something consistently for a little bit of time is more impactful than 3 1-hour workouts during the week. Depending on the workout, there's, obviously you have to research that. But we are all or nothing. If it's not an hour or 2 hours, I'm not going to do 10 minutes today. If we're talking about exercise, I tell people all the time, okay, if an hour's not good enough for you and you think 10 minutes is nothing, so it's not worth doing, why don't you do 10 minutes of push-ups, squats, some abs? Do that repeatedly for 10 minutes. You're going to be dying because I've done it. I have been in that position where I'll wake up and I'm like, oh, I really don't. An hour. I don't have an hour. I got to be at work. I got to be somewhere. And then I pop in my Peloton 5-minute ab burner. And I'm like, oh my God, this is insanity. I'm so sore. Don't tell me to do another bear plank. My arms are on fire. My abs are sore. They're aching. Because 5 to 10 minutes actually does make a difference. It actually does make an impact. So don't think you have to move the needle all the way. We're talking about tiny shifts. Okay? So when I ask you, who are you when you're not performing or achieving? Who are you without the prestigious title of your job or your position? What I'm asking you to do is explore the other parts of you. I'm not saying all the other parts of you, if you love to play guitar, the piano, and you love to be outside, you love to take hikes. I'm not saying go do that full time. Okay? Let us be realistic. You might be able to do that for a year or 2 or more, by the way, depending on your financial situation and what you've got going on. And that would be awesome. But I'm not saying that's the only way. I'm saying start exploring these other parts of you that you probably have either silenced over time, suppressed over time, or thought you didn't have time to do them. Okay. Think about the parts you could reclaim about yourself. I've had clients reclaim things like singing instruments, walking in nature, hiking, um, things that made them feel alive and honestly at peace. They're all worth exploring and tapping back into. Okay, the final belief we're going to talk about today is perfectionist paralysis, which is the idea that I can't make a move unless I know exactly how it will work out and that it will work out for me. As high achievers, we often crave certainty and control. Now, we could have another whole episode or two or three or 10 focused on what control really means. But let's table that for now. Everyone tends to have that in them as a human, that we want to know how it's going to work out. We want to control the outcome. We want to control things. Everyone has that, but when you're like a high achiever, you on another level. You just on another level. It can feel a little bonkers, right? Because you start it becomes too much in many ways. We want to be sure that any decision we make will lead to success, and this type of mindset can paralyze you, keeping you stuck in analysis paralysis, and you've heard of that phrase. It's easier to stay in a situation that's not fulfilling to you or something is off about it because the fear of failure outweighs the possibility of your growth, outweighs what could be, outweighs what's possible for you. But also, staying where you are, even if you don't necessarily love it or like it, is familiar to you. The discomfort is familiar to you. Your brain knows it. Your brain's like, yeah, man, you know, it's the devil you know, that phrase you've heard, the devil you know. Or rather, the devil you know. That's actually scientifically accurate. Your brain does prefer the devil you know. Your brain loves what's familiar, which is why it's so hard to let go of bad habits and implement new ones that are great for us. They're healthier, but it's not familiar to your brain yet. So your brain works really hard to shut it down and to revert to the comfortable, the familiar, even if that's not good for you. So career transitions, they come with fear. They come with uncertainty. Even thinking about them comes with fear. And there's a lack of knowing how it's all going to go. So then you say, okay, I'll think about that later. Okay, in 5 years when my kid is, in high school, I'm going to think about that. And then you're like, oh, shoot, they're about to go to college. Oh, I have to help with that? Okay, so maybe I can't switch jobs because I need the money to help them pay for college. Okay, that's another episode. We don't talk about that. But I'm just giving you an example of what you might be thinking about because it's what people have told me that they think about. But sometimes we wait for these perfect conditions or we say we'll do it later. And that's just a form of procrastination, right? We know that there's never a perfect time and that real true success, however you define it, which is more than just traditional markers of success, comes from doing something that feels right for you when there are no guarantees that it's going to work out in your favor. Where you really have to learn to trust yourself, that whatever happens, you can figure it out because you can. And by the way, I'm betting you have tried something that you didn't know how it was going to go and you were worried about it, but you put your best foot forward. And maybe it didn't turn out great, but you learned so much from it and you applied that lesson moving forward. And that's a win. That's a win. That's still a win. And sometimes you do something so much, like you figured out so much in the past or you're used to figuring out really tough problems all the time that you forget you have that skill and that experience. And you see it as just like a work thing, but it's actually a you thing that applies to other parts of your life other than work. So here's your reflection question. What's one small step that you can take towards something new just to test the waters? just to test the waters. So this could mean you thinking back to things that you've enjoyed before. This could be thinking forward to, if I were to make a shift or a role change, who could I talk to about that? Who do I have a relationship with? Who am I connected to? Or who could I speak to that is doing the thing that I might want to do? Or who has done the thing that I want to do? I mean, there are so many different options and combinations here. The point is to take one small step towards something new. So starting to get your brain kind of primed for like, what would this be like? What would that be like? Let's talk to people about that. And the reason why I'm saying it should be a small step, you don't have to take 5 million, it's one small step, is because one, the small step typically will gain momentum and give you the next step and the next step, and then it snowballs and it leads to something really incredible. But also because, like, your brain can't handle more than that. Your brain is not gonna your brain, if you say, "Okay, I'm gonna do these 10 things this week," you get that is highly likely not going to happen because you have your job that's probably highly demanding. But give yourself one thing you can do this week. That's totally doable and feasible, right? Reach out to so and so. Ask for a coffee or lunch date from so and so. Date, I mean just meet up and ask to learn more about their role and how things are going for them. Or let's catch up. Let's do a coffee catch up. And when you do coffee catch ups, it's great. Say, "Oh my God, so what's up with you? How are things been going for you? What are you thinking about?" And then you can talk about what you're thinking about. Again, it depends on the relationship you have with the person. Let's use our judgment here. The point is, a lot of us have our heads down working really, really hard. And then when we start feeling this inner shift that something might be off and that we may want to do something different, we have forgotten and neglected our relationships that can help us get to the next position or to the next step. So I'm asking you to reignite that or do some other step that will help you start thinking about the difference. Start priming your brain for a different situation, a different shift for you. This takes time, right? When you do one small step at a time, you can imagine the path takes time, but it's worth it to get started. It's worth it to get started. And you never, ever know what can happen with one small step you take. You just cannot predict it. And that's the point. It is also the unknown. So, worst case scenario, the unknown. Best case scenario, also the unknown. Now, as you've listened to these beliefs and you reflected on your own experiences, I want to remind you, and I know I said it before, but I need you to understand that you do not have to blow everything up. You don't have to burn it all down. Listen, you can. Look, you can. You can. But I'm not saying you have to do that because what happens is we think we need to do that to make a change, and that's not true. You feel that way because we have this all or nothing mindset that has a lot of us, it makes us successful, but it also can be unhelpful in moments like this. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you do. You do need to start telling yourself the truth. You do need to be honest with yourself, right? You are allowed to want a life and a career that feels really good to you. You know, I get it. The resume matters. The resume looking good matters in many ways. Yeah, right now it does. But I'm telling you, because this is the research shows us, right? When you look back on your life, what's going to really matter to you? What are you going to regret? Because you can have a life and a career that feels as good as it looks on paper. You are allowed to want more ease in your life, more alignment, more joy, more fulfillment. No, it's not too late. No, you don't have to wait. Yeah, if you want to like pack it up and take a 3-year break, maybe you gotta wait to like see how the finances are. And again, you have the power to rearrange your life the way that you need to and the way that you want, depending on what drives you, what motivates you, what your values are, what's most important to you. Okay. Now, if this episode spoke to you, I don't want you to just move on and go to the next one. Really journal your answers to the reflection questions. Listen to the episode again. This episode is not that long, so please do that for yourself. And don't silence that part of you that's waking up, right? This isn't a problem to fix, and there is no quick fix, by the way. Anyone that's promising you that, that's not reality. Okay? This is not a quick fix, and it's not a problem to fix. There's nothing wrong with what's happening. It's just a signal telling you to pay attention. This is just a message telling you, hey, there's this nudge. Hey, pay attention. So you can get curious and explore what that's all about. Now, if you want more guidance, just grab a copy of my book, Your Time to Rise, and you can head over to my website, eddievargas.com, ARIVEEVARGAS.com. The link is in the show notes for free resources and more personalized support for you. Until next time, I'm going to remind you that you're more than enough and that you are incredibly worthy and powerful, regardless of your title, regardless of what you do for a living, regardless of the boxes you've checked, that you are enough just as you are. See you next time.